Okay, kids, it's time for another episode of the Fueled by Weird podcast, the only podcast that's part of the Oakbridge High PTA. I'm Chris Daly, and today I have the pleasure of chatting with Rachel Anderson. Rachel, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing so good, and I'm so happy that we can make this happen. I'm very excited to chat with you today.
This is going to be awesome.
It's gonna be fantastic. Okay, so usually I like to start these things off with an icebreaker question. So today's question, what scent or picture brings back memories for you?
Oh my gosh. Well, scent or picture,
Scent or
that's
picture.
like two things.
Yep.
I think, um, it's actually funny that you asked that question because was literally just cleaning up my room and I have an old photo album, um, from my grandma that like she passed away like 10, 11 years ago, but she helped raise me. And like so I was literally looking through her old photo album, and there's like a picture in there of um a a tree that she helped plant at the Animal Ark, which is like a animal sanctuary just like north of where I live in Reno.
Nice.
And it's a tree in honor of Sundari, which is like this snow leopard that she helped take care of back when she worked at the Animal Ark. So it's just that photo, and it's actually I have it in a tattoo
Oh,
on
that's
my
cool.
arm. In her handwriting, it says this too shall pass, and then it's the tree at the Animal Ark. But she has a picture of it like when it was just planted. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool.
Very cool.
So
Very
yeah,
cool.
that was like a weird magical moment that happened like 10 minutes ago.
That's awesome. What a coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd say for me, the biggest thing that brings back memories for me is if I ever, it's kind of a weird one, but if I ever smell Irish Spring, like the soap,
Oh, yeah.
um, it's something my dad used to use all the time. Well, he did use it all the time when I was growing up. That was just like his go-to soap, and he always would buy it in bulk because he was crazy and just always had to have some on hand. So just anytime I smell it,
Oh,
it just brings back memories of my dad. So it's kind of a weird thing, but it's just something he just loved using. So it's just
that's so
something that always makes
sweet.
me think of him. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a specific smell too. That's,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, it's very
Yeah.
distinct.
And it's never changed.
Nope, not once.
I love that.
All right. So the concept of the show Fueled by Weird is basically, all of your hobbies, your interests, all the stuff that you're into is kind of what comes together to make you who you are as a person. So, what are some of the things that feel you're weird? What are some of your hobbies? Some of the stuff you
Um,
like?
yeah, I have a lot of like I have a I think my high school world history teacher, my favorite teacher, said that I'm a Renaissance woman. And I
Okay.
was like, what is that? But I think that's just I like to do a lot of things. I have a variety of weird things that I do.
Okay.
And like so uh I have like my science side, that's like my job, but
Hmm.
it's like microbiology and bacteria, and like I know I'm getting paid to do that, but I don't know. I love it. I feel like I love it enough to consider it like a weird hobby because
Sure.
I just I love bacteria. But then also I have like my creative side, which is like I've always done theater, but I also do dance. I do all different kinds of dance, tap, jazz, ballet. Um, I do showgirling. I also do aerial
Wow.
arts, like silks, where you
Cool.
like climb up the silks.
Oh, cool.
Um, and I've done some pole dancing classes. Let's see. Yeah, I think those are like my core current like obsessions. And reading
That's
is
cool.
like we have like a an unofficial book like uh oh, and then also um we and then I also part of the theater arts is I my wife does burlesque, and so another one of something I'm obsessed about is rhinestoning and helping her make costumes, and then uh doing kittening, which is like picking up the clothes of the people who have stripped them off
That's
during
so
the
cool.
performance. So a lot of I have a lot of weird.
Hey, that's okay. And kind of going back to what you said before, being a Renaissance person, I like that expression because I usually just use jack of all trades but master of none. Renaissance
Yes.
sounds a lot more fancy. But yeah,
Renaissance.
I've had people that I've talked to where they're like, you need to pick an interest, you need to stick with that interest and get good at that interest. But it's like, there's just so many different things that, how do you just pick one thing and then just have that be your thing? Because there's so many different things that, like you, I'm sure there are all those different things that you were things that you wanted to try. There's tons of things that I want to try. So like how do you just pick one? I can't do it.
No,
And so the people
no.
that do, that's cool. If you guys can just pick one thing and that's your thing, much respect to you. But I can't on the one. Maybe it's ADD, I don't know, but there's just so many different things I want to try and do. I can't just stick to one. So that's really cool.
Yeah. It's not weird enough if you just stick to one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I kind of want to dial into these a little bit because, when you and I first started chatting, I was kind of doing my research on social media and saw all the cool things that you're involved in. So let's start off with science. What was it that got you interested in becoming a scientist in the first place?
I think it's my dad's a pilot and my mom is a veterinarian, so kind of I've
Oh, wow.
always grew
Okay.
up with like because my dad is very like engineering mind and my mom is very
Mhm.
biology mind, so I've always had like a I've always loved the sciences because I feel like um in a way it's like I feel like there's magic because science it's things are magical until they're explained and then they're science, which I think
Sure.
is really this cool. I've always been drawn because it's like science has the explanation to things. It's like how things work.
Mhm.
Um, and the specific science I do now is medical laboratory science, which my mom was actually a medical laboratory scientist before she became a veterinarian. And so um, I was trying to figure out my life, trying to figure out a science career. And then I learned more about lab science, and I was like, this is exactly what I want because it's like I am doing the science, I'm doing like all the, the fun, like I'm IDing bacteria, I'm doing the sensitivities, but I'm also helping people and helping doctors help people. So it's like that I feel like it's like a way to help the world, but I'm an extroverted introvert, so I'm too introverted to see patients all day. So I can
I
help
get
the
that.
patients without actually seeing, having to interact as much.
I totally get that. I've been working in IT since 2009. And before the pandemic, let me back that up. So
Yeah.
for my job for IT support, I used to do a lot of hardware support. So I'd go talk to a lot of people. I'd get, hands-on one-on-one with people. So I had a lot of interaction with people, and it's not something that I'm good at, but it's something I'm really good at pretending to be good at. Just
Yeah.
being able just
Yeah.
to walk up to a stranger and talk to them.
It's
Since
acting.
exactly since the pandemic, it's been harder because, I've been working from home now, and so it's not only is it physically hard to go to that person in person because, I'm at home, but it's kind of like, oh, if I don't have to talk to this person, and I can just help them without, interacting with them face to face, let's do it. And I do a lot more of that now because I've kind of switched from hardware support for IT to more software support for IT. So really it's similar but not quite the same, but so I'll help customers all day long without actually having to like get on the phone and talk to them or talk to them in person. So yeah, totally get it.
The dream.
Yeah. That's really cool. So,
Remotely help people.
exactly. All day.
Yeah.
So, how did you go from, the side of, the sciencey side to, the thespian side, getting into the arts and stuff like that? What kind of kept that going for you?
Um, so long story short, and it's interesting that I talked about my grandma because my grandma was like loved theater and then like so I grew up dancing. So it's like when me doing theater is like a throwback to my grandma, which is kind of nice.
Okay.
But I actually grew up in the dance studio
Oh,
and
nice.
that's like my background. And then when I was 8 years old, we did like at the dance studio we had like we'll do like the recital and it'll have like a theme and the theme of that
Oh,
year was like musical theater like songs from musicals and we did like Sound of Music and Annie and then right after that a local like children's production put on Annie and I was like I was like, wait, I just did this. I should go audition for that. And that was like,
Nice.
that's when I got bit by the theater bug. So I've been doing theater, like I all throughout theater and science, like I'm a scientific thespian. Um,
Okay,
and
that makes sense.
I feel like, yeah, I've been doing it all along, like through elementary school up until college. I actually have a minor in theater and a major in biology.
That's so
It was
cool.
always very weird. And then I the funny story is I graduated college and I was like, I'm going to be a research scientist. But when I worked in a research lab, it wasn't directly helping people. Like it wasn't like the lab now where I work, where it's like, this result is going to directly help this patient. It was like kind of like this research is going to help develop this other thing. And then it was kind of, so I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And then in college, I did a show, Anything Goes, and it was directed by someone who was like a assistant choreographer on Broadway. And I was like, wait, can I dance? Maybe I could do a dance thing for a while. So I literally like danced I was a showgirl. I danced in magic shows. I danced in Christmas shows for like years after graduating college while I'm, sitting there with my biology degree. And then eventually I was like, I miss the science. So it's kind of the other way around where it's like I did the theater and dance uh career before the science career. Whereas some people like do it the other way. They're like, I'm leaving science and I'm going for the theater. And I'm like, I did it the other way around, where I was like, but then I was able to kind of do science and I can still do science and theater at the same time, which is lovely. I love
That is
it.
cool. Rachel, the dancing scientist.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
love
that's what
it.
my dad calls me.
That's incredible. I love it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. It's really cool to meet someone, who, has this really serious daytime job, but at the nighttime, it's almost like switching gears and totally going completely 180, which is it's so cool. It's so cool to see
Yeah.
that people are actually, growing up and, keeping the hobbies they had as a kid, because a lot of times when you grow up, it's like, all right, you're grown up now. You can't do all that stuff that you did when you were a kid. You have to, be a grown up now. But it's like being a grown up is so boring sometimes, and
Yeah.
it's hard. And, for lack of a better word, sometimes being a grown up sucks, and you need to have that outlet to, you know, kind of just forget life for a little bit. And that's
Yeah.
it. I think a lot more people need to remember that, it's okay to still be into stuff that you're into as a kid just because you're technically a bigger kid now. You know what I mean?
We all have an inner child. Like that the
Yeah,
inner child is there being like,
sure.
I'm tired of I'm tired of doing all the adult things.
I'm done adulting for today.
I'm done. Done.
Totally get it. Totally get it. Very cool. Okay, so, your science, you've got all sorts of different kind of dancing and acting. So, where did voiceover come into all of this? What got you into, pursuing voiceover acting?
Yeah, it's a funny story because it's like it's the timing of everything is just so funny because I did, theater and dance and then went to science and went back to I was in the medical lab and like I started my career in medical laboratory science in 2019. And then a year later, my job became even more pivotal because of the pandemic.
Sure.
So it was
I
like,
can
so I
imagine.
kind of like, I took a break. I wasn't actually breaking because that's when I started doing more silks and stuff, but
Mhm.
I took a break from like performing and stuff and doing like theater. And then like a couple months into the pandemic, uh, I saw like a post on Facebook that was like, oh, we're doing a virtual radio show and auditions, everything is virtual. And this is when I lived on the East Coast in Virginia,
Mhm.
and it was like a local production here that I like used to like I was still kind of connected to.
Mhm.
um and I was like, oh wait, so I can like go do my job and then like record and do like theater stuff. And so I actually record in my closet, as you can see. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, that's so it was like a way to like stay connected to my theater roots and not have to like put as much commitment and time to like because I have a full-time job. So
Yeah.
I was able to I was working night shift and then I would record during the day for that show. And like it was one of those things where it's like it kind of like found me, but then I was like, this is great because I can like create my own world in my in my closet, and it's just it's so much fun. I love it so much.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Um, and I also kind of wanted to go back and talk a little about the burlesque thing because I think that's so fascinating. So how did that kind of come around where because you went from being a dancer to, dancing with the Silks to burlesque. Is that all kind of related in some way? Is there like a thread that ties them together?
And I technically I'm not a burlesque performer.
Yeah, oh,
I have
sure.
not actually done I've not actually done like
Sure.
burlesque myself.
Mm,
I'm like I would call myself a super fan of burlesque,
sure.
and
Sure.
the core of that is my wife Tina Anderson, also known as Titanium Tina.
That's so
Um
cool.
she's badass. She's an amazing performer, but um I kind of like her obsession with burlesque was contagious because it was one of those things where it's like I grew up with dance and theater, and then like I kind of uh I started the science thing, and then I was kind of doing the recording thing, and like right around the time right before the pandemic, Tina got both of her knees replaced, which is where Titanium Tina came from.
Oh, nice.
So it's like uh just like we both had like not been doing like our creative side because she's always been very creative. She's like she did belly dancing, and she's done all these like she's like performed in group dancing, and so like at the same time as like I started doing like radio plays and like getting re-engaged in like the theater aspect, she was healed from her knee replacements and she could finally do burlesque, which she had never been able to do before. And then like as she started like her kind of like career as Titanium Tina, and I like kept going to those burlesque spaces and all these different like performing groups in there because everyone is just kind of like an individual artist that comes together to create a show.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, like burlesque is like the perfect marriage of like the dance world and the theater world and musical theater and like freak show, like circus. Like it's just like it's like it's like a really awesome, weird collection of people that are also different, and we celebrate our differences because everyone is literally every performer is different. And like burlesque is not just like sexy dancing. It's like, you can be totally feminine and dripping with jewels, or you could be doing a totally like kind of like drag king masculine, or it can be like a blend of genders, or it can be like, screw genders. Like I don't, it can be like an
Yeah.
alien. Like that's the burlesque story that the person is telling. So it's like yeah, I'm like a super fan of burlesque. And then also when I get to do like kittening and like be backstage with all the performers
Yeah.
and like, and like go on stage and like clean up the act that they've like one, there was one performer that one of the things I needed to take off the stage was like or bring to the stage was a stick of butter because she was a
Oh,
lobster,
wow.
and it was like
Okay.
a blow up butter. Yeah, I was like, it's fabulous.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you guys meet? Just through, the dance community, or did you?
Oh, it's actually fun. So I lived in New York for 4 years, and that was
Mhm.
when I was like doing, but I was like not doing science. I was doing more theater and dance. And we actually met at New World Stages. It's an off-Broadway theater in New York, and she was like the usher, like a host for Avenue Q, which is one of my favorite musicals. And I
Yeah.
was an usher at the theater. And
Mhm.
so we actually met like at a theater, which is like one of my favorite places in the world. And then I met my favorite person at my favorite place in the world. So it's like,
Cool.
yeah. And it was just so happenstance either. Cause I was like, it was one of those things where it's like neither of us were technically performing there, but we happened to both just be working there. So it's like, yeah, the stars aligned.
Yeah. Actually, that's kind of funny because my wife and I, we actually also both met at a theater that we were working at. It was a movie theater, but still a theater. Because yeah, we were working there. And at first she just didn't like me just because all I had been working there first, she came working on after, and people had told her stuff about how mean and I was and how much of a
Oh,
slave driver I was. So she actually didn't like me at first. Um, and then I quit and started working somewhere else, and her and some of the other theater workers came into where I was because I went to work at a Subway, and they came for lunch one day, and I just looked at her and I was like, yeah. that I really really missed seeing her around all the time. So
Oh,
actually what I did was started working two jobs. I got my job back at the theater. So I was working at the theater and at Subway. And so I could just spend time with her. And then eventually got to the point where I was like, nope, I'm done with Subway. We're just going to go back to the theater full time. And
yay.
so we started hanging out and that kind of just all snowballed into us being together 22, almost 22 years later. So
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
very cool.
I love it. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, that was a very cool story. I really wanted to hear about it just because, when I was looking at, stuff to talk about with you, I saw all the scientist stuff. I saw the stuff with Titanium Tina, and I'm like, okay, so she's a dancing scientist, who's married to a burlesque dancer. And I think this is just so cool I was very excited to talk about all of that. So
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
thank you for talking about that. That's cool.
We're like super
So
obsessed. Like
it's
that's
it's
my Instagram feed is drag queens, burlesque, and yeah, that's pretty much
it was
it.
awesome. Your Instagram feed is fantastic. I'm so excited. It's
Yeah.
one of my favorite ones now. So going back to voiceover, when you're getting ready to play a voiceover character, whatever the background calls for, what do you do to get into the mode of playing a character? And I guess that can go for whether it's voiceover or whether, you're playing a character on stage as a dancer or, even in the theater. What do you do?
Yeah.
What do you do to prepare?
Yeah, that's and that's the I think that's the I feel like every time if anyone asks me like what do you like why do you like theater? Like what's your favorite thing? What do you like most about theater? And it truly is um that like becoming another person, like inhabiting another character,
Sure.
like seeing the world through a different person's perspective through like becoming this character.
Yeah.
So that's like almost the most fun part for me is kind of like exploring the character and like when you look at the text you kind of read it to be like what is her goals, what are her what are the obstacles that are going to prevent her from getting these goals, and then like what are the tactics throughout the story, like in each individual scene and then throughout, like what tactics is she going to do to like reach that goal, and then like what is her expectation, like what's like the stakes behind like what if she doesn't get this goal, what's going to happen? If she does get this goal, what's going to happen? I know that sounds very textbook, but it's really like it's like getting the meat of what the character is, and then I take that and then I like um I figure out what connects me to the character.
Yeah.
Like even villains, you can't when you're playing a villain, you can't play them like, oh my God, they're the worst person ever. You have to be like, they don't think that they're the worst person ever. You have to find something that connects you to them.
Yeah.
Um, and like, so, or like, and if it's a historical person, I'll try to like get as much as I can about that person so I can figure out like, what's their motivation, what makes them tick, and where like where their center, like where their like heart is in everything. So yeah, really that's like my favorite is like figuring out a character and getting into them, or like, oh my gosh, this character is kind of like this character that I'm obsessed about. So it's like finding that connecting thing so that you literally can like become them.
That's cool. And I like asking that question just because, it seems like, asking that question to several different people, you always get a slightly different answer. Like,
Yeah.
I talked to Connor Howard, Deputy Jack Harris from Oakbridge podcast. And I actually also talked to your mother,
Mom.
Monica, a couple weeks ago. And it's just interesting how the answer to that question changes every person has a different process. So it's really cool to kind of dig behind the process. And
Yeah.
I apologize. I'm not usually this all over the place, but
No, it's okay.
I just remembered that you also just recently celebrated an anniversary with Miss Titanium Tina. So I wanted to also
Yeah.
congratulate you on your big anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah. Our marriage is now going into first grade.
That's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting back on track, because again, I
Yeah.
apologize. I'm not usually this scatterbrained all over the place. I
Oh,
have
I
my
am
notes.
scatter.
I have my notes here that I'm usually pretty good at staying on notes, but yeah, Anyway,
My brain works
um,
better in scatter, so that's actually good.
perfect. Speaking of Oakbridge, you guys have just started getting into season 2 of recording for Oakbridge. I'm
Yeah.
actually also very excited for my turn up at the mic for season 2 of Oakbridge. I'm very excited.
Congratulations. It's very exciting.
Thank you. So tell me a little bit, about the show, what the show means to you, or kind of, just your perspective of the show. Let's start with that. Tell me a little bit about.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw because I had done Murphy's Inc. with 97 to Now Productions because I
Mhm.
they had like they had like posted I auditioned for season 1 and I didn't make it, but I auditioned for season 2 and I got two kind of like little bit roles. Um so it was kind of like I kind of got my foot in, and then I saw the auditions for like Oakbridge and I was like reading the description and I was like, this is this is giving like Stranger Things kind of murder
Oh yeah,
mystery, like,
big
but in
time.
the 90s. And I'm still obsessed with Stranger Things. Like I have merchandise. I'm a merchandise geek also when it comes to my
Oh yeah,
fandom. So I'm
yeah,
like
me too. Big
I
time.
have like, yeah, I have like the sweatpants and I have necklaces and like I love Stranger Things. So then like I luckily got cast in Sam, which was the character that I like actually wanted, like truly like felt connected with, because she was like, she's a nerd, but she's like has like a really good heart and is really kind, and she's popular, which I don't connect to. She's a
Oh,
popular nerd, which
I get that.
I was like, no, but she's not like a popular bully, which is nice.
Yeah.
So I was so excited to finally like delve in, and then I got the script and I was like this this show is like it's like it's like the Stranger Things. It's like it ticks all the boxes where it's like
Oh yeah.
the mystery, but then there's like the high school drama, and then there's the monster, and then the scary stuff where it's like I'm screaming in my closet and my dogs are concerned, and it's really fun to record and create this world that is just so like creative and fun, and like, yeah, and I'm always telling my friends, I'm like, so when are you gonna listen? Season 2 is coming out. Like, it's fun. And my
It's
mom didn't even recognize me. She was like, I listened to the season, and were you even in it? And I was like, yes, I was in like every episode.
I guess that's good, kinda,
Yeah. Like,
sorta.
okay.
But
Well,
yeah,
and
it's
also, yeah,
it's fun.
Sam is a little bit more of a snarky teenager, and I
Yeah.
guess, I mean, I was not super snarky. I had like a little bit. So it's probably good that mom didn't think, oh yeah, that sounds like Rachel.
You had to kind of step into a whole nother person.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's cool. Yeah, I remember I actually met Ashley Dean through social media, through Threads actually. And I got connected with her and I've actually had a chance to speak with her too. And it's really cool just, the whole vibe of the 90s because, being a child of kind of the 90s myself, it felt really like a throwback. And I remember when I first started listening to season 1, I'm like, okay, this is a little something out of the stuff that I normally listen to. I have a couple of
100%.
I have a couple of podcasts that are similar that I listen to, but most of them aren't even in the same ballpark as Oak Bridge. But once I listened to the first couple, I was hooked. I binged the whole season pretty quickly. I've tried getting other people to listen, but it's hard because everyone's got miles and miles of podcast subscriptions. I
Oh
know
my
myself.
gosh. Yeah.
I have tons of this stuff, but it's a cool show. Yeah, I agree with you. It does have very, very Stranger Things vibe. And going totally off topic, since you brought up Stranger Things, there's a guy on social media that I follow, who's got this really cool beard and he does lots of really funny stuff. He actually just mentioned he stayed in the Stranger Things B&B, which is the buyer's house that has been recreated to look just like the buyer's house.
Oh
I'll
my
have to
gosh.
I'll have to find it and send it to you. It looks
Yeah.
cool. Like all these people have gone in on investments on it and brought people in to totally recreate the house exactly like the buyer's house.
Oh,
And
I'm into it.
you can go
Yeah.
and you can go stay as a B&B guest. So I thought that was kind of cool and it looks super. I don't know where it is, but it looks super awesome. So I just needed to talk about it because I saw it and I've had no one to tell about it.
Oh
So
my God. Yes.
I needed someone to tell. And actually I should have told Ashley because I'm remembering Ashley is a big Stranger Things fan too. I need to bring it up to her too. So yeah,
Yeah.
going off topic.
No, I love, yeah. And I love Airbnbs. Oh, that's another weird thing. That's another hobby is I love to travel. Like I'm like have like just lists of Airbnbs that I want to stay in different places that are like themed or weird or unique. So
That's cool. My oldest
yeah.
daughter really wants to travel like so bad. She has all these things that she wants to go and do when she gets older. And I'm like, hey, good on you, kid. Like going back to the whole extroverted introverted thing, I have a hard time leaving my house sometimes because I'm just like, my stuff is here. Why would I want to leave? It's just so awesome at home. And I get the appeal of going out and, getting new life experiences. And I will occasionally go out and do stuff like that. I'm not completely super boring like my daughter thinks I am. And I can say
No.
that because she's never actually going to listen to this because she told me she's just too busy listening to her other spooky podcasts to listen to mine really. So
Ah, rude.
it's very admirable of her though to want to get out in the world and experience life, and that's super cool. But I'm kind of just I'm getting to the age where I'm super old and I kind of just don't want to. Like I had my
Yeah.
chance to go experience life, you know. Yeah, so I'm really a big homebody and she hates it because she likes going out and being around and doing stuff. I don't
Oh,
like to leave unless I have a purpose of leaving, you know what I mean? But she just likes to just to go for the experience. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, man. Like you do you. And that's cool that you're developing that part of you as a person. And that's kind of the exciting thing of watching her grow up, is she's kind of,
yeah.
developing her own person. She wants to go out and she loves being around people and talking to people and just getting all up in the mix. Um, she actually has a job at a Lego store and just watching her in her environment is just so awesome just because she's such a people person and she interacts with people of all ages, all different types of people, all ages of people, and she just can click in with a 2-year-old the same way she clicks in with a 22-year-old. It's so cool to watch.
That's a skill.
It really is, and I'm not sure where she got that from, but
Yeah.
she's real good at it, so it's very
Well,
cool.
I'm a when I travel, I don't like to interact with strangers. I'm like,
For
it's like I
sure.
like the traveling, and then like it's so
Yeah,
funny because like my wife is more comfortable talking to strangers, and she'll
yeah.
like strike up a conversation, and I'm like, make it stop, make it stop, make it stop, make it stop. But I
Yep,
know it's
yep,
good for
yep.
me. I know it's good for me.
Oh yeah, for
Anyways,
sure. I really appreciate the friends that try to get me out and interact with people
yeah.
just 'cause I'm like, I don't, I can't people today. It's kind of like adulting. Sometimes you just can't people.
Well, and
And
it's a recharge,
oh,
definitely.
for
Like
sure. Yeah.
yeah,
I know when I do it, it's always ends up being really good. So I
yeah.
really appreciate the people that get me. So it's like you. I know it's good for me, but it's
Hmm.
like, oh, I just don't want to.
Yeah.
You kind of have to like push me like, come on, let's. So it's like if I was ever to go skydiving, you would literally have to push me out
Oh my
because I'm
God.
not I'm not doing it on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's, I think the discomfort, getting outside your comfort zone is where you like have
Yep.
growth.
Oh,
Is
for
that
sure.
like when you're like, I know this is good for me. And
I
that's
know it's
why.
good. I know it's good for me, but I don't want to, you know?
Yeah.
Like I know taking my vitamins are a good thing for me, but they taste so terrible. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I get it, but I don't it doesn't mean I want to do it,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. It's where the growth happens.
for sure. All right. So, going back to Oakbridge, you already had your kind of a little bit of an in with Murphy's Law. I think that's actually, if I remember correctly, Connor kind of had a similar start that way. Um,
Hmm.
how did you get in with Ashley? Was it just kind of a because you're already kind of involved with Murphy's Law, or did you kind of get involved with Ashley in a different way?
I think it was just because I think it's because she was uh part of the Oakbridge project, which is under 97 to now. I think that's kind of how like we got connected.
Okay.
Um, and then I just remember, uh, yeah, I loved the scripts, and I was like these are great. And then when we got, the season 2, kind of like they were working on the script, and she kind of emailed the whole cast and was like, "Hey, we're working on the script, and like let us know." And then she actually emailed me personally and was like, "This is kind of where we're going with Sam. Um and just so you know, like this is," and she like gave little hints and stuff. And I told her, I was like, okay, now I'm like the season 2 Sam is actually a little more relatable because without spoiling anything too, I think she talks about it at the end of the season, but basically she's no longer going to be cheer captain. So she's changing her hobbies, and her new hobby is a little more relatable for me.
Okay, fair enough.
So it was like, and it was cool for me to interact with her, because I was telling her, I'm like, wow, I feel even more connected to her. And she was like, I didn't even know that, you've you've been you've have like a history of like of that will connect you closer to Sam after the second season. It was
That's
really
cool.
nice.
That's very
Yeah.
Now, when you were getting inspiration for Sam, I know you said a lot of it was relatable, but some of it was not quite so relatable. Did you pull any inspiration from anywhere to kind of get into that mindset to play Sam?
Yeah, I think for like the well, and at one point her brother calls her Barbie.
Hmm.
And I think when I was kind of like, when she was like doing that, like high schooler, like popular, like, everyone loves her, like, uh but she's very down to earth. So I think I connected to the down to earth part of her. And then also kind of like thinking about like literally the Barbie movie, like Margot Robbie, where she's like the perfect
Yeah.
uh and I think like the popular, because in a way, because I wasn't like socially popular, but
Oh,
I
me
feel like,
neither.
I know, I feel like with that socially popular, there comes that like idea that, oh, this person is perfect. And so I kind of like connected to, because it's not just because the popular person has as many problems as the person who's not popular.
Sure. They're just a lot
So
better at hiding it.
they're better at hiding it, and
Yeah.
they have a lot more support. Everyone thinks that they're perfect, everyone thinks they're popular. So I'm like, I'm pulling from Barbie, I'm pulling from Glinda from Wicked,
Okay.
um and also just like from my own personal life, like I feel like I have the curse of the golden child, because like
Okay.
my parents always told me I was perfect, and like so I kind of like had this like expectation of like, oh, you're the perfect child. And that's just like Sam, like
Yeah.
in her home life and in her school life, where it's like all the burdens on her. Like she has to be, she's the older sister. She has to be perfect for everyone. And she's like, I know I'm not perfect. So it's like that I feel like that it's that, like, what's it called? The contrast, the like juxtaposition of like
Yeah.
everyone expects me to be perfect. And so that's kind of how I connected to, even though I'm not socially popular, I like have that idea of, you know, feeling like the golden child when it's like, I know I'm not perfect. So
Yeah. And,
yeah.
I could kind of relate the same way just because of the fact that, as the oldest child myself, your parents, as the oldest child, not only as the oldest child, but the oldest child in the 90s. I don't think the same mindset really applies now to kids, but at least in the 90s, when you were the oldest, it was always expected that you kind of were, like a second or a third parent to your younger siblings. Like it was just expected that you will watch out for them, you will do all of this for them. And
Hmm.
I felt that Sam really had a lot of that
Yeah.
uh inflicted on her too. Like, you can't go because you have to do this for your brother. You have to, wait for your brother, do this, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I totally got that because it's like as much as you don't want to be in that position, you kind of just it's expected that you're going to do that. And so,
Yeah.
you just kind of feel like, all right, I don't want to do this, but I get so yeah, it was very relatable, I think, for a lot of us that were played the older sibling throughout the 90s, you kind of just get stuck in that same position.
Yeah. Well, and I'm an only child, but um
Okay, fair.
I feel like I relate to a lot of my, because I say I'm an only child, and people are like, I'm happy that people are shocked that I'm an only child, because it's like I don't give that, like, I hope I don't give that, like, only child privilege, but I do because like as
No,
a
not at all.
I relate a lot more to like the older sibling kind of vibe. Even though I didn't
Yeah.
really have to take care of any younger siblings, I didn't really have to, you know, be there for any younger sibling, but there it is still that kind of like my painful independence where it's like I got this. I can do this by myself. Like
Yeah, I mean, and that definitely showed, even being an only child, it's still, if you were to, it didn't play off that you didn't have any previous experience without siblings. So you did a good job on that part. It
yeah,
totally it totally translated for sure.
I love it.
All right. So do you have any other projects coming up that you want to talk about that you want to give a chance to some time? Okay, what am I trying to say? Holy cow. Are
Yeah.
there any projects coming up that you're involved in that you want to take a minute and talk about?
I think the biggest project, which is like it's something that I haven't, I danced for a long time,
Hmm.
which is great, but I feel like I never there's something about the dance world that I don't entirely connect with. I don't know if it's like, and no offense to anyone, I don't know if it's like there's like an element of superficialness about the dance world where it's like
Sorry.
it usually doesn't have that like depth of storytelling of like theater and music and like musical theater. So I really haven't done musical theater for a long time and I've missed it. And then so I am right now I'm in Reno, and I grew up like an hour south of here. And so I kind of grew up doing theater in this area. And a couple months ago, I got a message from a director, Stephanie Arigati, that I did shows with when I was in like high school and middle school.
Hmm.
And she's like, we're doing a musical review celebration of Western Nevada Musical Theater Company in Carson City. It's in next February. And she was like, it's basically like a reunion of all the people, and it's a celebration of 35 years of doing, musical theater. Is it 35 or 30? I think it's 35. Um, and I was like, oh my gosh, musical theater just picked up the phone and gave me a call. So like next February, I get to, I think the weekend of February 21st, I get to like do a musical theater review, which I haven't done a musical theater review in forever. And my dad's going to be in it too,
That's
because
cool.
he's done more plays than I have actually now, because he got the theater bug after I got the theater bug, and now we're both infected.
That's cool.
So yeah, that's like the biggest next project that I am working on. Rehearsals start next week. I'm so excited.
Oh, cool. That's very exciting.
Yeah.
So you said you're in Reno, right? You guys live in Reno right now?
Yes.
That's cool. So you're not super far from me. So you might actually be in the same time zone as me now. That's cool.
Yeah. Wait, you're in
I'm in Idaho.
I'm always like, and you follow, wait, is that you're on Pacific time? No, you're on Mountain time.
We're on Mountain Time, and I only know that because I used to have some friends that live in Yuma. Um,
Oh.
and we during the summertime and the springtime, I would be an hour ahead of them. But during the fall, since I would fall back, I would then be on the same time zone as them. So right now it's almost noon my time.
I think so we follow the what's it called? We do daylight savings time. Arizona, I think, is the one that's like, I'm not gonna be doing that, guys.
Oh yeah, you're in Nevada,
Yeah.
I'm in Arizona. It's
Yeah, no. It's okay. Desert. It's desert.
so
High mountain desert.
so yeah, so you're probably an hour behind me then, probably.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know why I thought that Reno was in Arizona. I don't know why I
It's
thought.
okay.
But
It's that scatterbrain.
I actually did spend time in Vegas as a kid.
Yeah.
That's my claim to Nevada fame. Because when I was little, my parents moved around a whole bunch. Because I was born in Logan, and then we spent some time in Tucumcari, New Mexico, and then they went to Las Vegas for a little while, and then they moved us up to Idaho, and that's kind of just where I've been since then. So yeah, they
Yeah.
they moved all over the place. It was pretty wild. I don't know what gave them such, and that was pretty much their travel bug because my sisters and brother, they were all born in Idaho. And so they're like,
They're like,
why don't we get to travel around a whole bunch? And I'm like, I don't even remember any of
oh,
it. If that makes you feel better. That's how little I was. It was all before,
yeah,
I think it was all before like before I was 5. Well, yeah, would have been before I was 3 or 4 actually. So lots of traveling. I don't remember any of it. So they got jealous, but I'm like, I don't remember. So I guess whatever. Be
yeah.
jealous, I guess.
What's worse, not traveling or traveling and not remembering? I'm like, oh,
Yeah, I don't
the
know.
missed opportunities.
Right? All right. So for final thoughts, I usually like to give people a chance to share some advice to fellow creatives out there. So the floor is yours. If you could give advice to anyone listening, what would be some advice that you would give?
Yeah, um, and it's so funny because my first thought, and this is gonna, I hope this is not this is gonna sound weird. Okay, one of my favorite performers is Sutton Foster.
Okay.
And she's like a big Broadway person. She was also in Younger, she was in Bunheads. But every time I hear that question of like, what are your advice for like, theater people, for creative people, what is your advice, for people who want to do a career or just want to do, especially a career, I think, but this is gonna be in general.
Mhm.
And her response is always going to be in my brain. Her response was, "Don't be an asshole."
That's good
Which
advice.
I don't mean that negatively. I don't mean like,
Sure. Yeah.
it's just true. It's like people, if people like working with you, they will use you again, you know?
Yeah.
And if you can get your foot in the door and like go forward with kindness and like and then you will get hired again. Like people, all those like famous directors where you see the same person in every single movie that they've ever done, it's probably because they like working with them because they're pleasant to work with,
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
oh yeah. That's like that's someone else's advice for creatives. So that's
That's still good
literally what
advice.
and then I think for my personal like uh advice really is like my as you can see, my fire and like my light is very much like theater, burlesque, dance, silks, like all these things that like bring me to life. And it's like that's what you got to find is you got to find something that like brings you to life because that's what the world needs more of is
Yeah,
like
man.
people who are like just inspired by what they do or uh feeling like being brought to life and feeling that light. Because the world needs a little more light these days.
Definitely. I'll
um,
see you there.
yeah, yeah. And I think, okay, one more thing, because then this is another.
Sure.
So I also love
Yeah.
Meryl Streep,
Okay.
and then this is also this is not a discouragement. This almost sounds like a discouragement, but I think so. I listened to your other talks to I think when you talked to Monica and
Mhm.
Connor, and she mentioned like who is it like if you're feeling burnt out, like take a break from your creative stuff.
Yeah.
But for my measure is like, and this is something that Meryl Streep said because I love her. If you aren't nervous before going on stage, if you're not nervous about, putting out your art, if you're not nervous about like having that vulnerable moment where you're like, this is my art that I've put forward, either performance wise or drawing or writing, and if you're not nervous about it, then you need to take a break or quit
I think so.
because it's like it's that nervousness that is the light and like the excitement. So yeah, that's my
That's
advice.
nice. Yeah, because I mean, if you don't have the butterflies, when you're gonna do something, obviously you've either fallen out of love with it or you just kind of just don't care anymore. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
you would definitely need to. I agree with that. You would definitely need to take a break to kind of refocus and recenter yourself and kind of refine what it was about that particular whatever your interest is to kind of get that passion back for it for sure. And yeah,
yeah,
definitely, I would agree that we need some more light in the world for sure because there's a lot of people that, just want to be gloom and doom and want to say, oh, woe is me. But it's not that way. It's not that way unless you choose to be it that way.
yeah,
Because, they always say, you should always wake up and choose happiness. And it sounds way easier said than done. Of course it does. Everything worth doing is easier said than done. But,
yeah,
you can definitely notice a difference when you wake up to instead of waking up and saying, "Okay, well, I'm awake now, what's the day going to bring me?" Because being positive doesn't always return positive results, but it more often than not that it does. And if you put the negativity out in the world, you're most definitely going to get the negativity back. And that kind of also ties into your first bit of advice. Don't be an asshole, aka don't be a dick, because
We're all going through it, you know.
right.
You
And
never know what someone's going through.
oh, 100%. And if if you're not a nice person to be around, people aren't going to want to be around you. And then all you're going to be left with is saying, why doesn't anyone be around me? Usually, and this is good advice that I didn't get from anybody, but it's something that I've experienced firsthand where if everywhere you go, you always finding someone that's an asshole, chances are it's probably you.
Yeah.
At that point, you need to kind of recircle back and kind of see like, okay, if everywhere I go, I always find there's always a problem with somebody. It's probably not that person, it's probably you. So you need to kind of figure out what it is about yourself that you need to change. And
Yeah.
I haven't experienced that with myself, but I've experienced that with other people that they always complain that, this particular person was a job hopper and they had several different jobs within a short amount of time. And every time they would leave that job because there was someone they didn't like. And they'd always have a problem with
Yeah.
that job. So it's like, if you go to all these places, there can't be that many crappy people in the world. So if you're gonna go to all these different jobs and find something that's wrong with it, chances are the problem is probably with you. Granted, that person doesn't talk to me anymore because we gave them that
Oh,
advice. But
oh no. Yeah.
it's better off really because if they're gonna unfriend because of that kind of advice, then really they're not really the friends to begin with, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But those are
Well,
really
and
good advice.
as RuPaul says, I'm literally just I'm just a mixed mosh of quotes. As
Nope,
RuPaul says, if you don't
please.
love yourself, how the hell are you gonna love somebody else?
Oh,
You know?
100%.
So
100%. And
starts with you.
I've talked to a lot of creators where, they give the advice where you have to be your biggest cheerleader because
Yeah.
honestly, if you aren't talking about how awesome you are, no one else is going to think that you're awesome. So it kind of falls in the same kind of category. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the one comment I've seen a lot lately is, you can't help other people unless you put your it's like on an airplane if the airplane's crashing,
Hmm.
you can't help other people unless you put your mask on first. So,
Yeah.
nope, totally get it. Totally
Yeah.
get it. All right, so Miss Rachel, I have Monica in my notes because I didn't change it from Monica to Rachel. Oh, it's guys.
My
Miss
mom.
Your mother, yes. Rachel, where are some places people can stay up to date on projects you're involved in and stuff that you're doing? Where can we find you on social media?
Okay, so the funny thing is, um, I don't really do much social media. I call my wife, she's kind of like our social media representative.
Okay.
And she literally has taken classes. So she is Titanium Tina on Facebook and Instagram, but I myself am I don't know if I mean I'm Rachel Anderson on Facebook, which is like there's a bazillion of them, but Instagram I think is my most creative
Okay.
profile. And it's weird, but it makes sense. So my initials are RA, Rachel Anderson. So my Instagram is RA Scientific Thespian. And
Huh.
that's me it's
Okay,
me on
that
Instagram.
makes a lot more sense now. I kept looking at it and
Yeah,
like there's got to be something in this, but I couldn't really figure out what it was, but that makes perfect sense.
it's a lot. It's a lot. It's very long.
And make sure you guys, if you're not already following the Oakbridge podcast, definitely go follow the Oakbridge podcast, 97 to now productions, all their stuff. Go check out with them, what's going on with them, and make sure you stay tuned for all the updates because season one of Oakbridge is out now. Season two is underway. It's in progress. You should be hopefully seeing it. I think they said first part of next year, maybe, is when it's done at least. I don't know when they're actually going to release it, but I think the recording is going to be wrapped up by the first of next year.
I was
So
just thinking that. I was talking to
very
my mom
exciting.
about it, and I was like, we're recording it, and I actually don't know when it's being released.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I imagine they've got to do a couple of months with because I actually also talked to Mr. Joe Bly, the audio wizard
Oh,
for
he's
Oakbridge.
genius.
Oh, 100. He made me think about things that I never even thought about before, which blew me away. Just some of the details and some of the stuff that he asked, like he's incredible. And I imagine he's got to do some work and do some tweaks and some fine tuning. So I'd imagine it'll be sometime next year, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The spring.
I don't even want to try and guess because
Yeah.
that's probably a good guess. But just stay tuned and you'll find out when it comes out. Um, so for me, I'd like to take a minute to thank Polygon Horizon. Their song Pizza Force is the song I use for my show. It's a fantastic song. Go check them out on Bandcamp, show them some love. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Fueled by Weird. Actually, I probably should put you can find me on Threads now because that's I'm on
I
Threads
know,
now.
right?
Threads is fantastic. I used to think it was just some other dumb social media because social media kind of is a bummer sometimes, especially now. Social media is a huge bummer. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I'm glad I gave Threads a chance because giving Threads a chance was a way for me to meet Ashley and all of you wonderful people. Um,
Yeah.
and so Threads is actually kind of cool. So find me on Threads too. Fueledbyweird@gmail.com. Send me questions, comments, concerns. You want to be on the show yourself, hit me up there. We can get everything sorted out. I'm currently on a super big backlog of other wonderful folks from Oakbridge who would like to be on the show. And there's only so many episodes I can record a month. So I'm trying to make sure we get everybody who wants to be on the show time to be on the show. It just might take a little longer than originally I wanted to because I didn't expect so many responses, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm very
Well, it'd be
excited to
good to
talk
have
about the
like
show.
material throughout like the release of season two, I feel like
Oh,
too.
for
So
sure.
yeah,
Definitely,
it's
for
meant to
sure.
be.
Absolutely. Um, you can also find me on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. And now you can also find me on the Spotlight Media GA app, along with the rest of the Stay Weird Network shows, the Nerdy Man Room show with Hassel and Monster, Hassel's Review, and Big Rob's House of Entertainment and No Chinese Food. Now, Stay Weird Network is a brand new podcast network dedicated to bringing some awesome back to the internet. Check us out at Stay Weird Network on YouTube and Instagram, and send us an email at stayweirdnetwork@gmail.com. I also want to thank the Zone Collectibles in Tifton, Georgia. They're the sponsor for this show. They're your one-stop shop for comics, collectibles, and so much more. And if you like the show, please leave a review and tell your friends because word of mouth is my friend. And remember, kids, life's too short to be normal, so stay weird. Rachel, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.